I spent $10,000 on a vending machine, you won't believe what happened. Chapter 1. The Strange Idea. It all started on a rainy Tuesday. I was sitting in my cramped office cubicle, sipping lukewarm coffee and trying to muster the energy to finish a spreadsheet that refused to make sense. My eyes wandered to a YouTube video playing in the background, showing someone buying and flipping vintage arcade machines for profit. Something clicked in my brain. What if I bought something weird, something no one expects, and made something of it? I opened my laptop, typed into the search bar, unusual things to buy with $10,000, and scrolled through a rabbit hole of bizarre articles. But then I saw it, a refurbished vending machine listed for $8,500. Industrial grade, touchscreen, multi-item configuration, it even accepted contactless payment. And just like that, the idea latched on. I called my best friend, Darren. You want to spend 10 grand on a vending machine? Not just any vending machine, I said. I'm going to turn it into something no one's seen before. You've officially lost it. Maybe I had, but by the next morning, the machine was paid for and scheduled for delivery. Chapter 2. The vending machine arrives. It was bigger than I thought. The delivery guys rolled it into my garage on a dolly, grunting and sweating as they maneuvered the hulking piece of tech into place. It stood nearly 7 feet tall, steel gray with a sleek, modern interface. It looked more like a bank vault than a snack dispenser. I spent the next few days tinkering with it. My plan wasn't to fill it with soda or chips. No, this vending machine was going to be different. I stocked it with curious items, lottery tickets, fortune cookies with handwritten predictions, mini art prints, motivational notes, tiny books of jokes, self-care items, even sealed envelopes with random dollar amounts inside. Above the touchscreen, I stuck a banner. The mystery vending machine, every selection is a surprise. Chapter 3. The launch. The next weekend, I rented a spot at a bustling outdoor market and hired a truck to move the machine. With help from Darren, I set up a small booth, plugged the machine in, and waited. At first, people walked past, shooting curious glances but not stopping. I stood nearby, handing out flyers and offering free tokens. The first customer was a little girl with her mom. You can choose anything, I told her. Each button is a mystery. She tapped the touchscreen, and the machine whirred. Out came a small box labeled, "Today you will laugh more than ever." Inside was a packet of joke cards. She giggled. Her mom smiled. They walked away, and I noticed something. More people were watching now. By noon, there was a small crowd. People were laughing, trading items, and posting about it online. Someone tagged it #MysteryVendingMachine on Instagram. By the end of the day, I had gone viral. Chapter 4. Going viral. Overnight, the story exploded. Local news picked it up first, then national outlets. Influencers shared videos of their experiences, and one lucky guy even received an envelope with $100. That became the legend. The machine with surprise cash. People came from other cities to try it. I was making money, sure. But more than that, I was creating moments, connections, joy, and then came the investors. Chapter 5. Scaling up. Emails started pouring in. One was from a startup incubator in San Francisco. "We love what you've done. Let's talk about franchising." Darren and I flew out for meetings. Soon, we were planning to launch 10 new machines across the country. Each machine had local artists contributing mini art, local writers penning fortunes, and small businesses providing sample products. It wasn't just vending anymore. It was a community. We added QR codes for users to share what they got. Some even sent videos of the moment they opened their surprise, laughing or crying or calling their friends. The machine had become something more, a memory dispenser. Chapter 6. The unexpected turn. But success brings challenges. One day, a customer posted a TikTok claiming she received a note that said, "You're not good enough." It went viral for the wrong reasons. My inbox filled with angry messages. I was horrified. I checked the machine's logs and discovered the note was a prank, inserted by someone posing as a contributor. We pulled all the machines and inspected every single item. We implemented strict content curation and added tamper-proof seals. It was a painful lesson. But the public forgave us. The story of how we responded with transparency actually boosted our credibility. We turned the scandal into a story of integrity. Chapter 7. The Full Circle. A year later, I stood in front of our 100th machine in Times Square. It was lit up in neon, surrounded by crowds, cameras flashing. And I remembered that rainy Tuesday when all I wanted was to escape my spreadsheet. A reporter asked me, "What inspired this?" I smiled. "I spent $10,000 on a vending machine. And I gained a purpose." Explanation for Chapter 1, The Strange Idea. It all started on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, the kind of day where the grayness seeps into your mood like fog curling into every crevice of a forgotten alley. I sat hunched over my desk in a cubicle that had all the charm of a cardboard box. The dim flicker of fluorescent lights above me was giving me a headache, and the coffee in my mug had long since passed the threshold of lukewarm into the realm of undrinkable. I had been working in data entry for the last 4 years, a job that paid the bills but left my soul parched. The endless spreadsheets, constant performance reviews, and soulless corporate emails had whittled me down to a husk of the ambitious dreamer I had once been. I longed for something to shake me out of the monotony. Something unpredictable, something that would make me feel alive again. That day, instead of diving into yet another Excel sheet, I found myself scrolling through YouTube. A recommended video popped up on my sidebar. Guy buys weird Craigslist items for profit. Intrigued, I clicked. The guy bought a vintage popcorn machine, an old soda fountain, and even a defunct payphone, then flipped them for massive profits. Something in me stirred. I leaned back in my chair and said aloud, "What if I bought something weird, and made something of it?" The idea took root like a stubborn weed. By the time I clocked out that evening, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I wasn't wealthy, but thanks to years of frugality and a small inheritance from my grandfather, I had a little over $10,000 tucked away in a savings account. Money I hadn't dared touch. Until now. That night, I opened my laptop and typed into Google, "unusual things to buy with $10,000. My screen exploded with suggestions: exotic pets, antique swords, pinball machines, and rare sneakers. I kept scrolling, my heart pounding with excitement. Then I saw it, an industrial-grade, touchscreen vending machine. It was listed on a business liquidation website, $8,500, fully refurbished, with all the modern bells and whistles. It accepted bills, coins, credit cards, and even contactless payments. It could be customized to sell almost anything. And it looked sleek, too, like something straight out of a futuristic tech expo. I stared at the listing for hours. Every rational voice in my head screamed that this was insane. But another voice, a louder one, the voice of possibility, whispered, "What if this is the thing that changes everything?" I called my best friend, Darren. "You want to spend 10 grand on a vending machine?" he asked, incredulous. "Not just any vending machine," I said. "It could be an experience. Something interactive. What if it didn't just sell snacks? What if it sold moments? Surprises?" He laughed. "You've officially lost it, maybe. But what if I haven't?" By the time we hung up, I had made up my mind. The next morning, I emptied my savings account and placed the order. 3 days later, the vending machine arrived. I took the day off work and waited as a delivery truck pulled up outside my garage. The machine was enormous, 7 feet tall, clad in brushed steel with a digital touchscreen. 2 movers wheeled it down the ramp on a dolly, grunting as they positioned it in my garage. I signed the paperwork and stood back, staring at it like a caveman discovering fire. This wasn't just a vending machine. It was a canvas. I spent the next week transforming it. I cleared out the default snack compartments and installed adjustable shelving to hold boxes, envelopes, and odd-shaped items. I wanted each item to be a surprise, no labels, no previews, just mystery. I filled it with a mix of quirky, wholesome, and occasionally hilarious contents. Tiny books of jokes, affirmation cards, stress balls, fidget cubes, fortune cookies with custom messages, sealed envelopes with anywhere from $1 to $100 inside, mini art prints, keychains, and even handwritten notes like, "You are enough," and "Call your mom, she misses you." I dubbed it the Mystery Vending Machine, and made a custom banner with vinyl lettering. Every selection is a surprise. Above the screen, I installed a sign that read, "Life is full of surprises. Take one." Then came the big question: where would I put it? After making a few calls and jumping through some small business hoops, I secured a weekend slot at a local outdoor market known for its artsy vibe. I paid for a small booth space and rented a moving truck to haul the vending machine across town. Darren, skeptical but loyal, helped me load it up. The morning of the launch, I stood beside my machine, armed with a smile and a stack of flyers that read, "Want a smile, a surprise, a story to tell? Try the mystery vending machine." For the first hour, nothing happened. People passed by, staring curiously but not stopping. I began to worry. Maybe I had miscalculated. Maybe people didn't want random mystery items. Maybe I had thrown away my savings for nothing. Then, a little girl stopped in front of the machine. She tugged on her mom's hand. "Can I try it, Mom? Please?" Her mother smiled. "Okay, just one." I handed them a token. The girl inserted it into the machine and tapped the screen. Whirring gears spun to life, and out came a small white box with a blue ribbon. Inside was a glitter-covered stress ball and a note that read, "Today you will laugh until your belly hurts." She squealed with delight. Her mother chuckled. "That's adorable." Word spread quickly. People started lining up. They took videos and photos, tagging them with #MysteryVendingMachine. The buzz grew, and by the end of the day, I had sold out every single item. People were laughing, trading contents, and sharing stories. That night, exhausted and elated, I realized something. I hadn't just spent $10,000 on a vending machine. I had bought an opportunity. I had taken a chance on wonder, on surprise, on the magic of unpredictability. And people loved it. I stared at the empty machine in my garage and smiled. This was only the beginning. Explanation for Chapter 2. The vending machine arrives. The Friday after I ordered the vending machine, I woke up at dawn, heart pounding with anticipation. I'd taken another day off work, this time under the guise of a personal project. Little did my boss know, that project was a 700-pound mechanical beast rolling into my garage that morning. The machine was scheduled for delivery between 9 and 11 a.m., and I stood at the edge of my driveway like a kid waiting for Santa Claus. At precisely 9:37, a box truck emblazoned with Metro Vending Solutions pulled up in front of my house. Out jumped two guys in work shirts and steel-toe boots. One was built like a linebacker, the other, lean and wiry with a perpetual scowl. They opened the truck's back gate, and there it was, the vending machine, strapped tightly to a metal dolly. It looked even bigger in person, towering over the movers and gleaming like it had been polished just for the occasion. The touchscreen glinted under the morning light, and the LED indicators on the side blinked like it was coming to life. "You the one who bought this monster?" the bigger mover asked, wiping his forehead. "Yeah," I said, trying to sound cool. "That's me." They wheeled it off the truck, navigating carefully down the ramp. Every bump made me wince. One wrong move, and I'd be out $8,500 in a dream. But they were pros. With a surprising amount of grace, they got it into my garage and positioned it exactly where I wanted, against the back wall where an old set of shelves used to be. I signed their delivery sheet, gave them both a tip and a couple of cold sodas, and then stood alone with the machine. It was mine now. It stood like a sentinel, quietly humming. I reached out and touched the glass, half expecting it to shock me like Frankenstein's monster. "Let's get to work," I whispered. The first thing I did was take inventory. The inside had multiple rows and adjustable coils meant to hold candy bars, chips, soda cans, standard fare. But my plan didn't involve any of that. I wanted this machine to dispense experiences, not empty calories. I removed the coils and replaced them with custom compartments, clear plastic boxes, mini shelves, fabric pouches, and small bins. Each row would offer different types of surprises. I labeled them behind the scenes, but kept the touchscreen interface minimal. Just a start button, followed by randomized selections labeled only as Mystery 1, Mystery 2, and so on. I then created the first batch of items. Handwritten motivational notes on thick, elegant cardstock. Sealed envelopes containing random dollar bills from $1 to $100. Tiny sketchbooks with quick doodles I made myself. Small jars of colorful candy with labels like Joy Pills. Mini books of dad jokes and bad puns. Origami cranes with printed fortunes folded inside. For more interactive surprises, I included QR codes that link to exclusive videos I created, short monologues about life, positivity, funny rants, or calming sounds. I wanted every item to feel like it was made just for the person who received it. After 3 days of planning, crafting, assembling, and fine-tuning, the machine was finally stocked and operational. I tested every function, from the touchscreen responsiveness to the payment processing. The machine worked like a dream, but it needed a name. I decided on the Mystery Vending Machine. Simple, catchy, inviting. I printed a vinyl banner to mount above the machine. Life is full of surprises, take one. Then came logistics. I wasn't just going to park this behemoth on a sidewalk and hope for the best. I needed a location, a spot where foot traffic was plentiful, and curious minds were welcome. After making several calls and inquiries, I landed on the weekend art market downtown. They had space for a new vendor, and the booth fee was affordable. Darren was skeptical but agreed to help me move the machine. We rented a U-Haul with a lift gate, and together we carefully loaded it up, securing it with straps, foam padding, and crossed fingers. "If this thing tips, I swear, I'm out," Darren muttered as we ratcheted the last strap. "Relax," I said, "it's perfectly safe." Famous last words. The drive was nerve-wracking. Every turn, bump, and red light made me clench my teeth. But we made it. The market staff helped us unload, and we wheeled the machine into my booth space. I connected it to a portable power source, double-checked the software, and stood back to admire it. It gleamed under the open sky, surrounded by food trucks, artists, musicians, and curious onlookers. I felt a rush of adrenaline. This was really happening. To attract the first users, I made up a batch of free tokens with the words, "One free surprise," printed on them. I handed them out to passers-by with a rehearsed pitch. Each mystery item is unique. You won't know what you're getting, but it might just be what you need today. Most people smiled and moved on. A few stopped and asked questions. Then finally, a young couple stepped up. "This is cool," the guy said, inserting the token. He tapped the screen. The machine blinked, whirred, and dispensed a red envelope. Inside was a fortune card that read, "Your best memory hasn't happened yet." He showed it to his girlfriend. She smiled. "Can we do another one?" she asked. That was the moment. Within an hour, the buzz started. People took photos, filmed videos, posted online. The hashtag mystery vending machine appeared on Instagram, and someone made a TikTok video that racked up thousands of views by the end of the day. I sold out that afternoon. Every item was gone. People wanted more. As I packed up the machine that evening, exhausted but beaming, Darren nudged me. "Dude, you might be onto something." "I know," I said, "and we're just getting started." That night, I collapsed into bed, too wired to sleep. My phone buzzed constantly with notifications, new followers, and messages from people asking when the machine would be back. In the silence of my room, lit only by the glow of my screen, I realized, this wasn't just a weird impulse buy anymore. It was the start of something big. Something that could change not only my life, but the lives of people who needed a smile, a surprise, a story. I turned off my phone, closed my eyes, and whispered into the dark. "Thank you, vending machine." It hummed back in my dreams, dispensing wonder one mystery at a time. Explanation for Chapter 3, Going Viral. When I woke up the morning after the market launch, I had no idea that everything had changed overnight. I stumbled into the kitchen, poured a cup of coffee, and glanced at my phone. That's when I noticed the flood of notifications. My Instagram, TikTok, and even Facebook, which I rarely checked, were buzzing like a beehive in a thunderstorm. A teenager who had visited the booth had filmed a video of herself getting a surprise from the vending machine. She cried, actual tears, when she opened a small note that read, "You matter more than you know." Her video had gone viral. It had over 3 million views, 400,000 likes, and thousands of comments. Some people tagged their friends, "We have to go to this." Others wrote, "Where is this? I need this in my life." My follower count had jumped from 200 to over 10,000 overnight. I put the coffee down and opened my DMs. I had messages from local news stations, influencers, motivational speakers, and even a couple of curious investors. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. What's the story behind the vending machine? I decided to make a short video explaining the origin, how it was born from burnout, boredom, and a need to do something meaningful with my savings. I walked viewers through the machine, the idea of surprise items, and the response at the market. I spoke from the heart, explaining how I wanted to spread joy in a world that often felt cynical and cold. The video blew up. That day, I received a call from a reporter at the local paper who asked if she could do a story on me. I agreed. She came by the garage, took photos of me with the machine, asked all the right questions, and even got a free mystery surprise. When the article was published, it was titled, "The Man Who Bought a Vending Machine to Sell Joy." It went mini-viral on its own. More people started reaching out. Schools, hospitals, event planners, they all wanted the mystery vending machine at their events. I realized I had to make a choice, either keep it as a side gig or take the leap and go full-time. I took the leap. Quitting my job was terrifying, but also exhilarating. My boss was confused but supportive. "You're doing what now?" she asked, blinking. "Selling joy from a vending machine," I replied with a grin. She chuckled. "Good luck, dreamer." With a new sense of purpose, I reinvested what little money I had left into inventory and branding. I created a small website and added a booking form. I designed a proper logo, printed better marketing materials, and revamped the look of the machine itself. I also started creating themed mystery boxes, self-care Sundays, artist's inspiration, kindness in a box, and even holiday-themed ones. People could choose a category without knowing what was inside. By the third week, I had bookings for a high school mental health day, a tech company's employee appreciation week, a local wedding where the bride wanted guests to get surprise keepsakes. Each event brought new faces, new stories, and new reactions. At one corporate event, a woman in her 40s approached the machine with obvious skepticism. "I don't usually go for this kind of thing," she said. "Well," I replied, "that's exactly the kind of person it was made for." She chuckled and tapped the screen. The machine whirred and dispensed a small white envelope. Inside was a tiny mirror and a note that read, "Look at the person in the mirror. That's who's worth fighting for." She went quiet. Then she smiled. "I needed that today, more than you know." These kinds of moments began happening all the time. People laughed, cried, hugged strangers. Someone proposed using one of the items as the engagement message. A little boy donated his surprise envelope money to a homeless man on the sidewalk. I started documenting the best stories on social media, with permission, of course. The machine was no longer just mine. It had become a community experience. Then came the moment that changed everything again. I received an email from a producer at a national morning show. She wanted to fly me and the machine out to New York for a feature segment. I almost deleted the email, thinking it was spam. But it was real. I flew to New York 2 weeks later, did a live segment where I told my story, and watched as the host received a mystery item live on camera. Her envelope said, "The best chapters of your story haven't been written yet." She looked at the camera and said, "I think we all need a little of that right now." The segment went viral. Orders and booking requests exploded. I couldn't keep up. I began hiring help. Artists, writers, people to manage inventory. I taught them my process and told them, everything that goes into the machine must carry a spark. It has to make someone feel. I bought 2 more machines. Then 5. Eventually, we launched a subscription box version. We shipped monthly mystery surprises to thousands of people who couldn't visit in person. It became a business, a brand. But most importantly, it remained a mission. One night, I sat in my garage, now converted into a full-fledged workshop, and looked at the original machine. It had some dents now. Scratches. The screen flickered when it got cold. But I loved it more than ever. I thought about that rainy Tuesday months ago, back in the office cubicle. How close I came to staying stuck. How ridiculous the idea had seemed at first. I whispered, just like before, "Thank you, vending machine." And I swear it blinked back. This wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning. Explanation for Chapter 4, the people behind the machine. The mystery vending machine was now more than just a novelty, it was a phenomenon. And with that came an influx of people who wanted to be a part of it. Some wanted to buy machines. Others wanted to collaborate, but a special few wanted to create. I realized early on that I couldn't scale this alone. If I wanted the machine to keep spreading joy authentically, I needed help. Not just logistical help, but creative collaborators who understood the soul of the machine. So I started assembling a team. The first to join me was Ava, a poet I met at one of the art markets. She had walked up to the machine, pressed the screen, and received a folded slip of paper with one of my favorite quotes, "You are exactly where you need to be." She stood there, holding the paper, then looked up at me and said, "Did you write this?" "Yeah," I replied. "That's what I try to do with poetry. Help people pause, reflect." 2 weeks later, she was writing custom cards for the machine. Her style was whimsical but raw. Sometimes her words made people laugh. Sometimes cry. Always feel. Then came Malik, a visual artist known for his minimalist line drawings. He reached out through Instagram and offered to create limited edition cards and artwork for the machine. "What if someone got a one-of-a-kind original?" he said during our first meeting. We experimented with mini canvas prints, sticker packs, even temporary tattoos with his designs. They were a hit. People started collecting them, trading them, tagging Malik in their posts. Next, I found Clara, a therapist who wanted to contribute notepads filled with journal prompts and self-care tips. She said, "Your machine could be a bridge between fun and healing." With her help, we launched a Mindful Moments series that encouraged reflection and emotional awareness. I watched as people's faces changed reading her prompts. Some sat down nearby and started writing right then and there. As our team grew, the garage became a hive of activity. We had folding tables covered in paper scraps, art supplies, packaging tools, and partially assembled surprise kits. Music played softly in the background, and the smell of freshly printed cardstock mixed with coffee and glue. We started calling it the Joy Lab. We had weekly brainstorming sessions where someone would toss out an idea, and the rest of us would riff on it until it evolved into something tangible. We created themed weeks for the machine. Courage Week, filled with quotes about bravery, tokens of strength, and stories of overcoming. Connection Week, surprise postcards to mail to loved ones, or prompts to share a memory. Gratitude Week, tiny thank you cards, reasons to appreciate life, envelopes with kindness challenges. It wasn't just about random surprises anymore. It was about intentional joy. And then came the letters. People began sending us messages about how the machine had impacted them. One woman wrote that she was on the verge of quitting her job when she received a mystery card that said, "What if the leap leads to flight?" That message convinced her to start her own bakery. A teenager shared how a note inside the machine helped her feel seen during a dark time. "It told me to breathe," she wrote. And I did, for the first time in days. A young couple said they met while both waiting in line for the machine. One proposed 6 months later using an item from it. These stories made us laugh, cry, and stay late assembling more boxes. Every team member had a reason to be there. Every card, every drawing, every envelope had fingerprints of care and meaning. But with growth came new challenges. Demand was skyrocketing. We had vending machines now in 3 cities, a growing subscription service, and inquiries coming from overseas. We needed infrastructure. We moved from my garage into a small studio space downtown. It had tall windows, exposed brick, and just enough room to hold our expanding inventory. I hired a logistics manager, Alex, who came from the startup world. He streamlined our packing and shipping process, integrated better software for inventory tracking, and negotiated with vendors for better supply deals. With his help, we could finally breathe again. But I was also nervous. I didn't want the machine to lose its soul. Alex understood. "We don't have to become a corporation. But we can become sustainable," he said. "Let us handle the chaos so your team can keep creating." He was right. We started hosting workshops, inviting local schools, artists, and community leaders to contribute ideas. We held creation nights, where people came in and made their own mystery items to donate to the machine. We even launched a program called Pass It On, where someone could gift a surprise to a stranger through the machine. You paid for it, wrote a short message, and the next person who pressed the button got your gift with your anonymous note. It sparked a chain reaction of generosity. People started leaving envelopes on park benches, in cafes, on buses, all labeled, "Open Me. You might need this today." One day, while organizing materials, Ava found one of the first cards I ever wrote. It said, "The world needs what only you can give." She held it up and said, "You know that includes you too, right?" I paused. For so long I had been pouring myself into the machine, the mission, the stories of others. But I hadn't stopped to consider what I needed, what I was feeling. That night, I sat at my kitchen table and started writing again. Not for the machine, not for social media, just for me. The machine had taught me how to give. Now it was time to learn how to receive. Explanation for Chapter 5, Beyond the Button. The mystery vending machine had become more than an experiment. More than a project. It was a movement. But even movements need to evolve. This chapter was about stepping outside of everything we thought we knew. It began with a single question, one that landed like a spark in the middle of a team meeting. What if the machine could go where we couldn't? The room fell silent for a beat. It was Ava who had said it, absently doodling in her notebook. At first, we didn't understand what she meant. But slowly, the idea unfolded. Could we bring the concept of the vending machine, the spirit of surprise, joy, and kindness, to places and people who might never press that button themselves? So we piloted our first outreach project. We partnered with a nonprofit that worked with children in hospitals. Together, we curated special mystery kits for kids stuck in long-term care. Each kit was age-appropriate, filled with puzzles, tiny toys, books, and a handwritten card. The reaction was overwhelming. Nurses sent photos of children opening their kits with wide eyes. Parents wrote in to tell us their children smiled for the first time in days. One little boy named Jordan received a tiny wooden airplane and a note that read, "Your story is still being written. Make it a sky-high adventure." He carried that plane everywhere, the nurse told us. That one moment changed everything. We realized we didn't need machines in every place. The message could travel. The experience could evolve. We started mapping out a new division called Joy Without Borders. Our first stop was a rural school in New Mexico where many students didn't have access to regular supplies or emotional support systems. We sent surprise kits to every student, including art supplies, affirmations, and postcards that read, "Today, someone you've never met believes in you." The school principal called us in tears. "You reminded these kids that they matter. You reminded us all." We expanded into shelters, food pantries, senior living homes. Each location had a tailored box. Seniors received nostalgia-themed packages, sometimes with a note about their era or a song lyric from the past. The results were the same everywhere: joy, connection, validation. It wasn't always dramatic or tearful. Sometimes it was a simple smile, a pause, a quiet moment of recognition. But it mattered. As the movement grew, so did our presence online. People began tagging us in their own versions of mystery giving. They left notes for strangers on park benches, handed out anonymous gifts, and even installed their own free joy boxes in small towns. One story stood out. A high school senior in Canada installed a homemade vending machine in her school hallway. It was just a cardboard box with envelopes inside, each labeled with a number. Students chose a number and got a handwritten affirmation. She called it kindness you didn't know you needed. We reached out and invited her to join one of our virtual creation sessions. She ended up helping design a new series for our digital platform. That was another leap, bringing the mystery machine into the digital world. With the help of a small tech team, we launched an app. The premise was simple: a digital vending experience. Each user could press the virtual button and receive a daily message, audio snippet, drawing, or challenge. We partnered with creators, therapists, musicians, and writers to contribute content. Every message felt like a tiny spark. Some days, the app told you to go compliment a stranger. Other days, it shared a poem or asked you to reflect on a small joy. We even created a digital version of the Pass It On program. Users could send a surprise message to someone in their contact list anonymously. We heard stories of friendships rekindled, families healed, even romantic confessions. It was surreal. This idea, born in the solitude of my burnout, was now reaching across the globe. But success brings new questions. How do you stay rooted in the original mission? How do you keep the personal magic alive when you're reaching hundreds of thousands? The team wrestled with these questions. We held long conversations about authenticity, about what joy really meant. We debated commercial partnerships and turned many of them down. We were offered major brand sponsorships. We declined unless the partnership was values aligned. That led us to one of the most beautiful collaborations yet. A nonprofit bookstore asked us to create a mystery book box. Each box included a gently used novel, a letter from a previous reader, and a surprise item related to the story. The books were curated by librarians and volunteers. Readers loved it. Suddenly, books became bridges between strangers. One woman wrote to us. The book I received had a note inside from a woman named Lisa. She shared why this story helped her survive a hard year. That letter helped me survive mine. We weren't just making surprises anymore. We were making stories. We were making connections. And eventually, I had to step back and look at the bigger picture. What started as a $10,000 experiment had grown into an ecosystem of joy. A physical machine that still traveled to schools, events, and fairs. A subscription service shipping surprise boxes worldwide. A digital platform offering daily kindness. An outreach program reaching underserved communities. A network of creators designing surprises for strangers. But the real magic, it still came from that moment when someone hit the button. That 1 second of anticipation. That breath you hold, that flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, the world still held surprises worth believing in. Explanation for Chapter 6, Full Circle. Sometimes, the most profound journeys don't end with a bang, but with a gentle return to where it all began. That's what Chapter 6 is all about, coming full circle. After all the growth, the partnerships, the viral moments, and the lives touched, I found myself back in front of the original mystery vending machine. The first one, the slightly scuffed prototype with a faded logo, still blinking patiently in the corner of our new headquarters. I stood in front of it with a coffee in one hand, the other hovering over the button. It had been a long time since I had pressed it myself. But before we get to that moment, let me take you through what brought me there. The project had reached what most people would call success. We had vending machines in libraries, hospitals, airports, even a few corporate campuses. The app was downloaded over 1 million times. The team had grown to over 30 people, each bringing something beautiful to the table. And yet, something inside me was shifting. I was grateful, yes, but also tired. This thing I had started as a spark during burnout had turned into a full-time operation, and while it was deeply fulfilling, it was also consuming. I realized I hadn't taken a break in years. I was surrounded by joy but struggling to experience it firsthand. So I made a decision. I would take a step back. Not forever, just long enough to listen again, to breathe, to figure out who I was now that the project had become bigger than me. I left the day-to-day operations in the hands of the leadership team, Ava, Alex, Clara, Malik, and a few incredible new voices who had joined along the way. They encouraged me to take time. You've poured your soul into this, Clara said. Now pour a little back into yourself. So I did. I took a train up the coast with nothing but a journal, a camera, and a backpack. I stayed in quiet towns. I talked to strangers. I visited bookstores and art museums and old diners. I wrote letters to people who had impacted my life, even if they didn't know it. One letter went to a high school teacher who told me I was creative. Another went to the nurse who cared for my grandmother. I didn't expect anything in return. That wasn't the point. The point was to remember. Remember what it felt like to be the receiver, not just the giver. That shift taught me something powerful. Joy isn't always about creating. Sometimes it's about allowing rest, allowing love, allowing the moment to be enough. One morning, in a small beach town, I found a local community box. It wasn't branded, just a weathered wooden cabinet filled with notes, rocks painted with affirmations, and homemade bookmarks. There was a sign, take what you need, leave what you can. I stood there for 10 minutes, heart wide open. This was the mystery machine, in spirit. And it wasn't mine, it never had been. Returning to the studio weeks later, I felt renewed. The team had taken the project in beautiful directions. Malik had curated an artist-in-residence program. Clara launched mental health toolkits distributed through the machines. Alex negotiated a deal to bring them to more public schools. And Ava, she had turned the original quotes and messages into a published book. It was called Tiny Sparks, Words for When You Forget Your Magic. It hit bestseller lists. I was proud, not just of the success, but of them, of the community, of the ripple effect of one idea acted upon. That's when I found myself standing in front of the original machine. Hand hovering over the button. I pressed it, the motor clicked, a small envelope dropped into the tray. Inside was a simple note I didn't remember writing. It said, "The joy you give is the joy you deserve." I sat down and cried. Not out of sadness, but out of release, out of remembering. Chapter 6 isn't just the conclusion of the story. It's the realization that stories don't really end. They evolve. They pass through hands. They become a part of other people's stories. The mystery vending machine was never about the machine. It was about the pause. The wonder. The moment between button and surprise. That tiny heartbeat where someone says, maybe today will be a little brighter. We started receiving letters from new creators who wanted to build their own versions. Not to copy us, but to explore their own ideas. A high school class in India built a kindness board using recycled materials. A woman in Brazil made a joy jukebox that played audio stories for strangers. A teacher in Sweden designed a mobile cart that handed out anonymous compliments. All inspired by the same spark. The idea that surprise can heal. That kindness can be designed. That connection can be automated without losing the human touch. Dash dash dash. As for me, I still visit the machines. I still write new notes. I still watch people press the button and smile. But now I do it as a witness. Not the architect. Because the machine belongs to the world now. To every person who ever needed a sign. To everyone who ever doubted their worth. To all who paused long enough to press a button and believe in something gentle. And the final truth, sometimes, the best way to change the world is to leave something small behind that reminds people it can still be beautiful. A coin, a note, a button, pressed in hope, and answered in light. Explanation for Chapter 7, The Invisible Thread. Even after the journey seemed to complete itself in Chapter 6, something lingered, an echo, a quiet pulse that said, there's more. Chapter 7 wasn't supposed to exist. At least, not in the traditional sense. But life rarely cares about tradition. It moves in spirals, not lines. This chapter is about the unseen. The influence you never measure. The lives you touch without knowing. It began with a letter. Dash dash dash. It came in a plain envelope. No return address. Just one sentence written in careful penmanship. You saved my life, and you didn't even know it. Inside was a photo of a small vending machine. Not one of ours, but clearly inspired by it. Hand-painted, handmade. I read that line over and over. I felt the weight of it, the silence behind it, the sacredness. We never did find out who sent it. But it changed how I looked at everything from that day forward. Dash dash dash. We had been so focused on metrics. Number of machines, app downloads, outreach initiatives. But this letter reminded me, some of the most meaningful impact happens off the record. So I started a new experiment. Quiet, personal. I placed a notebook next to one of our original vending machines with a sign that read, "Tell us what this moment meant to you." Within a week, it was filled. Not all the entries were deep. Some were playful. Got a sticker that said, "You matter." Slapped it on my laptop. I think it works. First time smiling today. Thanks, button. Others cut to the bone. I came here thinking today might be my last. This message said, "Please stay. We need your story." I think I will. I lost my mom last week. This was the first thing that made me feel held. These weren't just notes. They were threads, invisible, connecting one stranger to another. A web of quiet resilience and radical kindness. And just like that, Chapter 7 came to life. Dash dash dash. We began archiving these letters. Not for publicity, but for preservation. We called it the Library of Echoes. We digitized hundreds of messages and created a virtual wall where anyone could read them anonymously. No login, no tracking. Just a space to witness. People began sharing their own stories in return. One woman in her 60s wrote, "I grew up in a house where no one ever said, 'I love you.' This machine gave me a note that said, 'You are loved.' No conditions. I printed it and taped it to my mirror. Now I say it to myself. Every day." A teenager wrote, "I didn't have the courage to come out until I got a message that said, 'Be your full self.' We'll wait." I cried. Then I came out, and they waited. Dash dash dash. There was no algorithm to trace this. No formula, no spreadsheet, just moments. Moments that added up. It made me think about all the things we never say because we think they're too small, too soft, too invisible. But kindness doesn't need credit to count. It doesn't need recognition to be real. Chapter 7 was about lifting the veil on those quiet miracles. Dash dash dash. We launched a new initiative called The Invisible Thread. The idea was simple. Create small objects that carried emotional weight. A coin engraved with, "Still here. Still shining." A key with no lock, inscribed, "You already hold the answer." A blank card with just a mirror foil inside and the words, "Look closer. You matter." People could order one anonymously and give it away. Or keep it, or leave it in public spaces. These tokens began showing up around the world. One was found in the shoe section of a thrift store in Tokyo. Another was left in a Bible at a Texas motel. One was spotted tucked into a library copy of Jane Eyre in London. Each object became a thread. Dash dash dash. We received a video from a group of college students who created an invisible thread scavenger hunt. They left tokens with notes and GPS clues across campus during finals week. The final surprise was a vending machine stocked with snacks, affirmations, and a live band playing chill jazz. It went viral, but more importantly, it started a tradition on that campus. Every semester, a new scavenger hunt appeared. No names, no sponsors, just joy. Dash dash dash. I was asked to speak at a conference shortly after. The topic, designing emotional technology. I stood on the stage, looked out at the crowd, and instead of giving a keynote, I told them a story. A boy once pressed a button and got a message that said, "There are still good surprises left in the world." He smiled, walked outside, and helped a stranger carry groceries. That stranger went home and called their sister for the first time in months. The sister donated to a charity that night. The charity funded a school in a village. A girl at that school wrote a poem. That poem was published. A woman in grief read it and cried, then smiled. That smile reached someone who hadn't seen one in weeks. And it all began with a button. Invisible, threaded, real, .. By the end of chapter 7, we had stopped asking, what next? Instead, we asked, where else do we need to show up, unseen but true? We didn't launch a new app or machine that season. We didn't expand. We listened. To the quiet, to the echoes, to the gentle tug of the invisible thread. .. If this chapter had a message, it would be this. You will never know the full reach of your kindness. And that's okay. It doesn't make it any less real. It doesn't make you any less powerful. So keep pressing the button. Keep leaving the note. Keep passing the light. Someone, somewhere, will feel it. And that's how the thread continues. Explanation for Chapter 8, The Legacy of Light. Every story, even one powered by surprise and subtlety, eventually asks the same question, what remains? What is left after the applause fades, the videos stop trending, and the last coin drops into the tray of a beloved machine? Chapter 8 is about legacy. But not the kind etched on stone or sealed with accolades. It's the kind that glows quietly, passed hand to hand, story to story. This is the legacy of light. .. Years had passed since that first button press. The world had changed, as it always does. Trends evolved, algorithms shifted, technology surged forward, people moved on, and yet, the mystery vending machine project endured. Not because of hype, not because of innovation, but because it had become something living. A rhythm, a practice, a language of kindness whispered across cities, countries, and cultures. .. It started appearing in the most unexpected places. A grief support group in New Zealand used the messages as journaling prompts. A women's shelter in Canada turned one of the machines into a weekly community circle. A teacher in Nairobi created a curriculum where students wrote their own notes and exchanged them anonymously. These weren't franchise extensions. They were echoes, each one slightly different, each one deeply personal. We watched the concept bend and evolve without losing its spirit. We didn't own it anymore. And that was the point. .. I was invited to a quiet ceremony at a senior center in rural Oregon. They had installed a mystery machine in the main rec room. Every resident contributed messages, many handwritten in cursive that trembled with age and wisdom. You're not too late. The world still needs your voice. You survived so much. Let joy find you now. Each time someone used the machine, the volunteers clapped. Not loud, just enough to say, "We saw you." A woman named Eleanor pulled me aside afterward. "We don't get a lot of visitors here. But this machine makes us feel like we're still in it. Still mattering." I hugged her. And I wept. .. We launched the Legacy of Light project that year. It wasn't about machines or apps. It was about archiving the human spirit. We collected stories from all the people impacted, in schools, hospitals, refugee camps, retirement homes, halfway houses, artist collectives. We didn't edit them, we didn't polish, we just listened. Some were a single line. Others stretched pages. They all glowed. .. A teenager in Seoul wrote, "I never believed I mattered. This machine didn't fix everything. But it cracked the wall." A man who had recently left prison wrote, "I pressed the button and got a message that said, 'You can begin again.'" I did. A child who didn't sign their name wrote, "I gave my message to my dog. She liked it. .. We turned these into a digital constellation, an interactive map where each star was a story. When you clicked one, the note glowed on the screen, followed by this message. You are now a part of the legacy. Pass it on. It was visited by over 20 million people. .. I began speaking less and listening more. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I realized, the power of this project was never in my words. It was in what they sparked in others. The real authors of this story were the people who believed enough to press a button. They were the light. .. I was asked once, what happens if this all disappears tomorrow? The machines, the app, the website. I smiled. Then someone will build it again. Maybe not the same way. Maybe even better. Because the need doesn't end. And the kindness is in them now. That's the beauty of legacy. It doesn't rely on permanence. It relies on transmission. A year after the Legacy of Light launched, I returned to the studio for a reunion with the original team. Everyone looked older, brighter, somehow. We laughed, shared memories, played footage of the early videos and cried a little. Then someone said, "Should we press the button?" We all gathered around the original machine. Each of us pressed the button once. Each got a different message. Mine said, "It was never about the button. It was always about the belief that pressing it would change something." That night, as I walked home, I passed a group of kids playing with a cardboard box. One of them had drawn buttons and slots on it. I asked, "What are you playing?" One said, "It's a magic box. If you believe, it gives you a secret." I knelt and whispered, "Did it give you one yet?" She smiled wide. "Yeah," it said, "you're going to do something great. Even if you don't know it yet." I nodded. "That sounds about right." So, what is the legacy of light? It's not a machine, not a book, not a campaign. It's the moment someone believes in good, in surprise, in themselves. It's the soft glow that remains long after the button is pressed, the story is told, the chapter ends. Because light travels, it doesn't stop when we do. It continues, carried by the ones we've touched, and the ones they touch, and the ones beyond even that. This was never just a project. It was a torch, and now it burns in many hands. Explanation for Chapter 9. The circle expands. In storytelling, the end is often imagined as a full stop, a final sentence, a last scene, a quiet fade to black. But what if the end is more like a return? A soft re-entry into the world, but with new eyes and an open heart. Chapter 9 is not about closure. It's about continuation. About how a single act of kindness can ripple outward until the entire shoreline changes shape. By now, the mystery machine was no longer a mystery. Its name had become shorthand for moments of unexpected grace. That felt like a vending machine moment. Just press the button and see. It entered the lexicon. It became folklore. But the real magic was never in the machine. It was always in the people who carried the story forward. One of the most powerful evolutions began with a schoolteacher named Isa in Argentina. She created what she called circle notes. Each student would write a note of encouragement, fold it, and place it in a decorated bowl in the center of the classroom. Each morning, the bowl was passed around. Students picked a note at random. No one knew who wrote what. Everyone felt seen. Soon, other teachers followed. Then other schools. Eventually, an entire network of educators across Latin America adopted the practice. It became a ritual of affirmation. A curriculum of care. The circle had begun to expand. In Paris, a performance artist recreated the experience as an immersive theater event. Attendees entered a dimly lit room filled with soundscapes, projection, and a single red button. Each press triggered a story told live by actors hidden in the audience, stories based on real notes from the vending machine archive. No two experiences were the same. Reviewers called it a sanctuary disguised as art. Tickets sold out months in advance. Meanwhile, in rural India, a small nonprofit adapted the model for mental health outreach. Instead of a machine, volunteers hand-delivered mystery notes to people in isolated areas, along with essential supplies. One man received a note that read, "Your breath is a prayer. Your existence is already enough." He was later quoted saying, "That was the first time anyone ever told me I mattered." The circle kept growing. We heard from a robotics team in Japan that had created a mobile version of the machine, designed to roll through hospitals and leave messages by bedsides. We saw graffiti artists in Berlin stencil vending machine messages on blank walls. Hope isn't sold here, it's given. Push the button inside your chest. Let joy out. It became clear, this wasn't about maintaining a brand. It was about releasing a blueprint. We had seeded a culture. Now it was evolving on its own. Back at headquarters, we stopped asking, what should we do next? We started asking, what do others need to do next, and how can we support them? So we built the Circle platform. A free, open-source toolkit with guides, templates, and stories that anyone could use to start their own kindness initiative. No logo, no branding, just light. The downloads exceeded our imagination. Not just in big cities, But in small towns, isolated communities, refugee camps, detention centers, oil rigs, even submarines. Yes, someone brought it underwater. We received a letter from a sailor aboard that submarine. He wrote, "We're underwater for months. Morale is fragile." Someone brought a laminated list of vending machine messages and taped them in the mess hall. I read a new one each day. Yesterday's said, "You are the calm in someone's storm." I wrote it on my arm. I think I'll keep it there. The circle had gone deeper than we ever thought possible. And still, the core idea remained intact. A stranger reaching toward another stranger with no expectation of return except the hope that something good might grow. So we asked, could the circle become policy? We approached city councils, school boards, and public health departments. We didn't sell a product. We offered a practice. We partnered with communities to integrate emotional resilience into daily infrastructure. Notes of encouragement at bus stops. Surprise kindness messages printed on receipts. Emotional check-in kiosks at City Hall. Some initiatives flopped, some flourished. All were lessons. All were seeds. And then, something we didn't expect. A child in a refugee camp in Greece sent us a note. Drawn in crayon, a picture of a smiling face and a rainbow vending machine. On the back it said, "Thank you for the magic box." When I pressed it, it said, "Home is coming." I believe it. Chapter 9 taught us that kindness isn't a gesture. It's an ecosystem. It adapts. It multiplies. It survives in translation, geography, circumstance. And the more people carried it, the less it belonged to us. We ended the chapter with a global campaign. Not a fundraiser. Not a product launch. Just one question. Where will you bring the button next? People answered with photos, videos, poems, performances, songs. From mountaintops to prison yards. From wedding altars to funerals. From moments of celebration to acts of protest. The button became a metaphor. For hope, for courage, for action. So now we return to the beginning. To a day when someone placed a red button on a box and asked, "What if pressing this could change your day?" It did. Then it changed weeks. Then years. Then lives. Chapter 9 proves there is no final chapter. Only the expansion of the circle. One kindness at a time. Explanation for Chapter 10, Full Circle. Every story that starts with a small, seemingly insignificant act can, with time, grow into something monumental. And yet, as the journey nears its end, there is a moment when everything seems to pause, as if to ask, what have we truly created? In Chapter 10, we explore the concept of full circle. The idea is that all the acts of kindness, growth, and moments of connection that we have experienced build upon one another. These moments, each in their own way, weave a fabric that forms a beautiful tapestry of human experience. It is an exploration of what happens when something unassuming begins to evolve beyond the creator's original vision and into something greater. A moment of reflection. It's easy to get caught up in the velocity of change, the new ideas, the breakthroughs, the endless cycle of innovation. Yet, in this chapter, we pause. We reflect on the core principles that laid the foundation for this journey: kindness, vulnerability, and human connection. The story begins with a quiet dinner in a small town, far from the bustling cities where our initial efforts began. The table is filled with old friends who were part of the early days. We speak little at first, but the weight of time shared together fills the space between us. Everyone is older now, the lines of experience drawn deeper, but the spirit remains the same. One friend, who was once skeptical, speaks up. "We always thought this would be a passing phase, didn't we?" He asks. That it would be a viral trend, one that fades with the next big thing. But look at us now. It's still here, and it's not just here, it's everywhere. His words strike a chord. It's true. The vending machines, once an idea that felt like a novelty, have evolved into something much larger, a cultural movement. The power of connection. The heart of Chapter 10 lies in the exploration of how far-reaching the impact has been. The ripple effect of this simple act of kindness continues to expand. From children's hospitals in Chile to refugee camps in Greece, the movement continues to connect strangers, sparking something deep within people. The notion of connection is central. What we learn in this chapter is that kindness, like a bridge, crosses gaps that many would think impossible to traverse. From political divides to emotional isolation, the vending machine messages have been used as a tool for healing and unity. What happens when a person, disconnected from the world, receives a message of affirmation? What if that one message could remind them that they're not alone, that their existence has meaning? The results are profound. We hear stories of individuals who, after receiving a note, decide to reach out to someone they haven't spoken to in years. A woman in a remote village in Ethiopia reconnects with her estranged sister after reading a note that simply said, "You are needed." A veteran suffering from PTSD shares his story with a group of others who have experienced similar struggles after receiving a message that said, "Your pain does not define you." These stories, small yet powerful, form the backbone of the movement. A new approach to social change. In Chapter 10, we also delve deeper into how the machine's impact has shifted from personal empowerment to social change. While the early focus was on individual acts of kindness, now the question is, how can we amplify this on a societal level? How can we create lasting change in communities, in organizations, and in global systems? The answer doesn't lie in large-scale marketing or one-time campaigns. Instead, it's in fostering a culture of ongoing connection, community engagement, support, and a sense of belonging that transcends physical barriers. At this stage, we see city councils across the globe integrating kindness into their urban planning strategies. In Stockholm, for example, kindness kiosks are set up in public spaces where people can press a button and receive an encouraging message. These kiosks serve as a daily reminder to those in the city that humanity and compassion are as essential as any other resource. Similarly, a group of social activists in South Africa begins organizing regular kindness festivals, where people of all backgrounds come together to celebrate small, kind acts. These festivals, while simple in nature, have a profound impact on people who often feel excluded or forgotten. It's an invitation for everyone to participate, to give, and to receive. The science behind the ripple effect. By now, the project has attracted attention from the scientific community. Psychologists, sociologists, and even economists begin to study the ripple effects of kindness on a larger scale. In this chapter, we explore the research that shows how even small acts of kindness have measurable effects on a person's well-being. The phenomenon of paying it forward is proven to have a direct impact on social cohesion and mental health. Studies suggest that kindness is addictive. When someone experiences kindness, they are more likely to extend that kindness to others. This perpetuates a cycle of generosity that, over time, builds stronger communities. It is not just about the act itself but the positive feedback loop that continues to grow. A monument to kindness. As the movement expands, we begin to wonder, how do we memorialize this moment? How do we make sure that kindness is not just a fleeting trend? The answer comes in the form of a monument. In a beautiful, symbolic gesture, a group of artists and community leaders come together to create the Monument to Kindness. It is an interactive sculpture that allows visitors to press a button and receive a message, much like the original vending machines. But this monument is unique. It is entirely crowdsourced. Messages come from all over the world, each person contributing their thoughts and affirmations to the collective memory. The monument becomes a living, breathing testament to the power of human connection. A quiet goodbye. The closing moments of Chapter 10 focus on a quiet goodbye. The team gathers one last time at the original vending machine, the very first one that started it all. The machine is worn now, its buttons slightly faded, but still working. Everyone presses the button one final time, and each receives a different message. The machine has become a symbol of the journey they've all been part of. The final message reads, "The end is just a beginning, and kindness never fades. It travels, always." Conclusion. The circle continues. As we reflect on this long journey, we realize that the movement has become something far bigger than any of us ever expected. What started as a simple experiment in kindness has now grown into a global culture, a way of life for many. The core principle remains the same, a stranger reaching out to another stranger with the hope that something good might grow. The full circle has been completed, but it's not over. The beauty of the journey lies in the knowledge that it never truly ends. The ripples continue to spread. Kindness, after all, doesn't stop with one gesture, it is passed along, one act at a time. As we look forward, we understand that our part in this story is not to dictate its course, but to allow it to unfold in ways we could never have imagined. This is the power of a single button, and the magic of kindness. Explanation for Chapter 11, The Everlasting Cycle. Chapter 11 dives into the deeper, more philosophical reflections that arise after the journey of kindness has moved past its initial impact. While chapters 1 to 10 explore the creation, expansion, and global influence of the kindness movement, chapter 11 focuses on the cyclical nature of human connection, the concept of endless growth, and how each person's actions can reverberate through time. The nature of cycles. In this chapter, we take a step back from the narrative of the project to reflect on the broader implications of the work. What happens when we begin a cycle of kindness? Does it ever really end, or does it simply evolve into something else? The chapter opens with the metaphor of nature, the seasons, the tides, the life cycles. Just as a seed planted in the soil eventually grows into a tree that produces fruit, the kindness that began with small acts has blossomed into a world-changing force. But like all natural cycles, the process never truly ends. Once a tree bears fruit, the seeds from those fruits fall to the ground and start new cycles of growth. In the same way, kindness continues to generate more kindness. The ripples don't stop, they flow outward in every direction, moving far beyond the initial moment of creation. The subtle power of repetition. One of the key themes of chapter 11 is the power of repetition. It's easy to assume that change only happens when something grand and spectacular is done. But true change often comes from the simple, repetitive acts of daily life. Pressing the button, leaving a note, saying, "Thank you." Each of these actions, though small, becomes part of a larger pattern, a cycle that continues long after the initial act. The chapter explores how each individual act of kindness feeds into the ongoing cycle. Just as water flows through a river, each act of kindness carries forward. In this way, every interaction, no matter how minor, has the potential to influence the greater whole. The ripple effect over time. A major focus of chapter 11 is the concept of the ripple effect, how a single, small action can create waves that expand outward and impact lives in ways we may never fully understand. The chapter takes a look at some of the most profound stories from around the world, highlighting how the initial act of kindness reverberates in unexpected ways. One poignant story focuses on a man who received a note at a low point in his life. The message read, "You are not alone." At the time, he was contemplating suicide, and that simple message saved his life. Later, he becomes a counselor for others struggling with mental health, and he continues the cycle of kindness by passing on the same message to others in need. The chapter expands on the scientific research that shows how kindness acts as a domino effect, where the more someone experiences kindness, the more likely they are to perform acts of kindness themselves. This creates a cycle that perpetuates itself, eventually reaching people who may have never expected to experience kindness in the first place. A global movement. The challenges of scaling kindness. As the kindness movement spreads, it reaches new challenges. While kindness is universal, its execution often depends on local cultures, personal beliefs, and societal structures. Chapter 11 looks at how the movement adapts to different cultural contexts. For example, in some communities, direct acts of kindness are met with skepticism. In these cases, the message must be approached more subtly, woven into the fabric of daily life. In other areas, kindness is an everyday practice, and the challenge becomes how to sustain it without it feeling performative or superficial. Through interviews with people in various countries, Chapter 11 highlights the creative ways the movement adapts. In South Korea, where group cohesion is highly valued, kindness manifests in the form of group challenges, where people work together to complete tasks that benefit the community. In Norway, where people value individual space, kindness takes the form of anonymous messages left in public places, like train stations or parks. The chapter also explores the difficulties that arise when kindness becomes a trend. The danger of commodifying kindness is ever present, and the chapter doesn't shy away from discussing the potential pitfalls of turning something so genuine into a marketing tool. The movement needs to be grounded in authenticity, or it risks losing the very thing that makes it powerful. The enduring legacy of the movement. As the story progresses, Chapter 11 takes a deeper look at what the future holds. What happens when the movement becomes a global phenomenon? What legacy is left behind when the movement becomes self-sustaining? One of the most significant moments in this chapter is when the creators reflect on what it means to let go of ownership of the movement. The team gathers to discuss the future, recognizing that the project has outgrown them. They no longer control the message or the movement, it belongs to the world. The idea of letting go is difficult. There's an emotional weight to seeing something you started become bigger than you ever imagined. But there is also a profound sense of peace. The kindness movement no longer needs to be dictated by a group of people, it exists as a force that belongs to everyone. The power of storytelling. In this chapter, we return to the concept of storytelling. At its core, the kindness movement is about creating a narrative, one that is not just told but experienced. The chapter explores the role of storytelling in perpetuating the cycle of kindness. The messages left in vending machines, the notes shared among friends, and the stories passed from person to person all contribute to the larger story that continues to evolve. The importance of story lies in its ability to connect people, to transcend barriers, and to foster empathy. In this way, storytelling becomes another tool in the kindness cycle. By sharing the stories of kindness, we keep the cycle going, passing it along to others who may not have been touched by it yet. The quiet transformation. In the final part of chapter 11, the story shifts to a more reflective tone. The question is posed: what is the ultimate goal of the kindness movement? Is it to create widespread recognition? Is it to leave behind a legacy of kindness? Or is it simply to transform the world, one person at a time? The answer is subtle. Kindness is not about grand gestures, but about the quiet transformations that happen when people begin to see each other, not as strangers, but as humans worthy of compassion. It's about changing the world, not by changing the systems, but by changing the way we interact with one another. In the closing moments, the chapter brings the focus back to one of the earliest stories, the man who received the note that saved his life. He is now a father, and as he watches his child press the button on a new vending machine, he realizes that the cycle has come full circle. The message on the note his child receives is simple: you are loved. The father smiles and whispers, "That's all we need." Conclusion. The endless journey. Chapter 11 ends with the idea that kindness, like life, is an ongoing journey. It never truly ends, it simply continues to evolve. Each act of kindness builds on the last, and as long as people continue to believe in the power of connection, the cycle will persist. The story closes with a note of hope, emphasizing that no act is too small, no moment too fleeting. Every individual has the power to start a new cycle, to pass on a message, to share a moment of light. The beauty of this movement is that it is constantly unfolding, constantly growing, and constantly changing the world. The final message in the chapter is a simple one: keep the cycle going. The world needs your kindness. Explanation for Chapter 12. Full Circle, the future of kindness. Chapter 12 represents a deep reflection on the journey of the kindness movement that began with simple, personal acts and spiraled into a global phenomenon. It is an exploration of how the world has changed and what comes next, both for the kindness movement and for humanity itself. In this chapter, the focus shifts from reflecting on past successes to looking forward at the legacy being created and how future generations will continue the cycle of kindness. The cycle expands. The chapter begins with a meditation on the idea of cycles, a recurring theme that has woven its way throughout the book. From the beginning of the kindness movement, each act of kindness, no matter how small, has created ripples. Now, as the movement grows, those ripples merge into larger waves that are capable of reshaping the cultural landscape. The story opens in a small town, somewhere in the heart of the world, where a group of teenagers gathers after school to press the button on a refurbished vending machine. These teenagers, unaware of the machine's origins, are creating their own version of the kindness movement, one built from their understanding of what kindness looks like in their world. They exchange notes, press the button, and talk about how kindness has changed their lives. In this way, they pass the torch to the next generation. They don't know it yet, but they are the inheritors of a powerful legacy. This generation will grow up with kindness as a foundational aspect of how they interact with others. Their children will know no world without it, and the circle will continue to grow. The role of education in shaping future generations. One of the most important shifts explored in Chapter 12 is how the kindness movement has been integrated into educational systems worldwide. Schools, once focused solely on academic achievement, have begun to place equal importance on emotional learning and empathy. The kindness movement has evolved from a grassroots campaign to a fundamental teaching tool. The chapter takes us to a high school in the United States where the first pilot program of kindness education was implemented. The program encourages students to perform daily acts of kindness and reflect on their experiences. Teachers and students alike are encouraged to write notes of affirmation and encouragement, which are shared anonymously. The impact of this program is profound. Students report feeling more connected to each other, less stressed, and more confident in their ability to make a difference. Bullying rates drop, and a new sense of community emerges within the school. These outcomes spark a wider conversation about how kindness can be implemented at the institutional level, and how it can shape the future of education. The idea that kindness should be taught alongside math, science, and history becomes a rallying cry for educators, and soon, other schools begin to implement similar programs. It is no longer just about achieving academic success but about shaping emotionally resilient, compassionate individuals who can foster empathy and kindness in their communities. Kindness is a global language. The concept of kindness as a universal language is explored in greater depth. While cultures may differ in how kindness is expressed, the underlying principles are the same across the globe. The movement, which began with a simple vending machine, has morphed into a universal force that transcends cultural, geographical, and political boundaries. The chapter takes the reader to different corners of the world where kindness initiatives have flourished. In Japan, for example, the Kindness and Community program encourages people to leave anonymous notes for others on public transport, offering words of encouragement or gratitude. In Kenya, a similar initiative has people place written messages of support on the outside of community homes, helping to foster unity in villages. Across Europe, kindness festivals are held annually where people perform acts of kindness for complete strangers. What began as a small, localized experiment has transformed into an international cultural movement. People of different races, backgrounds, and ideologies now find common ground in the simple act of kindness. This realization signals a shift in how global problems, such as poverty, war, and inequality, might be approached in the future, not with force or ideology, but with connection and compassion. From movement to institution, institutionalizing kindness. Chapter 12 also explores the next frontier, how the kindness movement can be institutionalized into the frameworks that govern society. As the idea of kindness spreads, it starts to challenge long-standing societal systems and structures. The focus of the chapter shifts to how different sectors, healthcare, business, government, and beyond, are beginning to implement kindness as part of their daily operations. In healthcare, for example, doctors and nurses are trained not just in medical procedures but also in emotional intelligence and how to deliver care with compassion. Hospitals adopt policies that prioritize patient well-being and emotional health alongside physical treatment. In business, companies are increasingly implementing kindness-based leadership models. These models focus on empathy, support, and trust building, as opposed to traditional models that emphasize competition and individualism. One company, a global tech firm, has gone so far as to integrate kindness metrics into its performance reviews, rewarding employees who engage in acts of kindness that positively impact their colleagues and clients. Governments, too, begin to consider the role of kindness in public policy. Some cities have introduced kindness councils, which are responsible for developing policies that foster a culture of compassion and mutual respect. These councils work to create more inclusive, supportive communities, and offer support to individuals in need, whether through mental health programs, economic support, or simply providing a space for people to feel heard and valued. The institutionalization of kindness represents the next evolution of the movement, from individual actions to collective responsibility. It acknowledges that kindness cannot only be an individual choice but must be woven into the fabric of society at large to create lasting change. Overcoming resistance and challenges. As much as kindness has spread, Chapter 12 also explores the inevitable resistance that comes with any major cultural shift. Some people remain skeptical of kindness, seeing it as naive or impractical. There are those who argue that kindness cannot solve systemic problems such as poverty or inequality, and that the movement focuses too much on individual behavior rather than larger social structures. The chapter doesn't shy away from these criticisms but rather engages with them in a thoughtful way. It acknowledges that while kindness alone cannot solve all of the world's problems, it can create a foundation on which larger changes can be built. Kindness fosters connection, and it is this connection that is necessary for people to come together and address systemic issues in a meaningful way. Furthermore, the chapter discusses how kindness has sometimes been co-opted by commercial interests, as brands try to capitalize on the growing desire for emotional connection. The challenge here is to keep the movement grounded in its core values, ensuring that it remains authentic and not commodified. Despite these challenges, the chapter ultimately affirms the power of kindness to transform both individuals and societies. It's not a cure-all, but it is an essential building block for a better world. The Digital Age and Kindness 2.0. As technology continues to evolve, so too does the nature of kindness. Chapter 12 explores how the digital age has both enhanced and complicated the spread of kindness. Social media platforms, while often criticized for their role in fostering negativity, also have the potential to be powerful tools for spreading kindness. Hashtags like #random acts of kindness and viral videos showing small acts of goodwill have helped to popularize the movement across the globe. However, the digital age also brings new challenges. The anonymity of the internet can sometimes lead to negative behaviors, such as trolling and online harassment. The chapter explores how the kindness movement has adapted to these challenges by encouraging positive online engagement. Social media influencers and content creators now use their platforms to promote kindness, using their reach to inspire others to participate in the movement. Moreover, the concept of digital kindness is discussed in terms of virtual communities. Online spaces have become places where people who feel isolated or marginalized can find support and connection. Virtual kindness initiatives, such as online support groups or digital letter writing campaigns, provide a space for people to share their stories, support one another, and continue the cycle of kindness. The chapter concludes by recognizing that while technology has changed the way we connect, it has not diminished the need for real, human connection. In fact, it has emphasized it even more. Kindness, whether shared in person or through a screen, still holds the power to bring people together and create positive change. Looking ahead, a vision for the future. In the closing paragraphs of Chapter 12, the reader is invited to imagine a future in which kindness is no longer a movement but a way of life. A world where kindness is institutionalized, where it is taught in schools, practiced in workplaces, and embedded in every community. It is a world in which every individual feels valued, heard, and supported. The chapter ends with a final thought: kindness is not a destination. It is a journey, one that we walk together, hand in hand, with no end in sight. It's a journey that continues to unfold, and the path is ours to create.